President Trump says he will not be rushed into a deal with Iran, even as the U.S. warns it will shoot and kill any boat laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Well, meantime, Iran projecting unity after claims its leadership is divided.
And with a fragile ceasefire holding in Lebanon, uncertainty is growing over how this war will unfold. The stakes are especially high here in Asia. The Strait of Hormuz remains a critical lifeline for energy imports, and distributions have already driven up costs and forced governments to respond.
But beyond the immediate shock, how is this crisis going to reshape Asia's economic outlook, energy security, and the way countries in the region respond? Well, joining us this morning in the studio is Adam Ward. He's the managing editor of the international consulting firm Oxford Analytica. Adam, good morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Got to ask you, of course, you gave a very early warning that Asia is probably one of the most exposed regions. You made this in early March. Is that being borne out in your view right now? It appears to be. And is it, going to get worse?
Well, I think what's clear is that this crisis is not going to end anytime soon. Asia does have a structural vulnerability to disruptions of supply, so that problem is going to endure. The case is that I think if it's a short-term crisis, like 3 or 4 months, the economic effect is likely to be noticeable but copable with. If things go on beyond that, then we're looking at a much more difficult situation for a variety of Asian countries. Some of them are better placed to respond to than others. Singapore, for instance, has stockpiles. It has fiscal resources for subsidies if necessary, other opportunities for government intervention. But even so, of course, Singapore is a country that is a trade hub and is very exposed to global trade patterns and downturns. And if this crisis goes on longer, then we could be looking at some stagflationary risks.
Right.
In the
going to get
economy.
to that. So a possibility of recession
Absolutely.
and worse, right?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So who is feeling it most here? And for them, how long can the resilience last?
It's a very varied picture. There's no kind of set category. As I mentioned, I think Singapore is in a reasonably robust position. There are other centers around Asia like Hong Kong and to some extent Taiwan and Japan and Korea. But it's maybe the smaller economies of the ASEAN member states who are less resilient. They have a weaker fiscal position. They have a greater reliance for fuel imports than some of the other countries. And the transmission effects are likely to be quite high. In a number of countries, such as Indonesia, the subsidy regime is already very generous, and the government's ability to absorb the shock of a sustained rise in prices is low. So there's going to come a point at which the economic impact is going to transition through into political impact as well, potentially popular unrest in some countries.
Okay, so which leads me to my next question. Asian governments rushing to secure alternative supplies, maybe ramp up, whatever green energy sources they have. Clearly not sufficient at this point in time is my understanding of it. So as they do this, do you see them doing this in a cooperative sort of a manner? I mean, within ASEAN, not just necessarily within ASEAN, but within Asia as a whole? Or do you see, a bit of rivalry and competition arising, from this rush to secure energy supplies?
Well, I think that rivalry is visible on the global stage. You see the way in which a lot of Asian countries are outbidding European countries in spot markets, for instance. So region by region, there is a kind of a competition and a race. But I'm sure that the instinct will be for whichever countries feel they are able to build up their stockpiles as much as possible and to secure their own position. The International Energy Agency has warned against this kind of behavior because obviously they are concerned that it has an exacerbating effect on prices. And they are concerned about the possibility of behaviors which replicate what we saw during COVID, for instance, when richer countries were grabbing resources and materials and vaccines, and other poorer countries were left behind as a result of that.
Right.
So the warning has been issued. Whether we will see close coordination or not is yet to be determined. Okay,
so it's good that you brought up COVID because China obviously very much in the mix here, set to be in a good position to ride things out, but is it really? I mean, it's got factories and, sure, it's got, maybe it's the fastest growing in terms of green energy, but not all those factories are running on solar or wind power at this time, right?
I think for the short term, China is well positioned. It's got stockpiles. It's made, as you say, the effort towards energy transition, electrification. It has diversified, actually, in the course of the last year, its energy supplies, including away from Russia, as it happens. So there is definitely evidence of a sustained strategy. But at the same time, China depends on the global economy. And if you look at the trade data for 2025, it's that, exports, which were driving Chinese growth. It wasn't domestic consumption. The Chinese government's been trying to boost consumption over many years, but for whatever reasons, structural hangover of the property crisis, youth unemployment, certainly overcapacity in the economy, deflationary consequences arising from that, domestic consumption has not taken off. So if we're now in a situation where the global economy and China's key markets are going to be suffering from stagflation, slowdown, that means it's a hit for China. So the question really is, what can China do to intervene to bring the situation to an end? And I think so far we've seen very little evidence of activity.
And Adam, beyond prices and pipes, with global attention and U.S. attention now stretched, as well as international laws and rules under strain now, how do you gauge the risk of countries in Asia sort of testing their own boundaries, revisiting sort of, old disputes, shall I say? Is there sort of a hotspots, potential flashpoints that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, I think the general trend is that America is currently bogged down in Iran, and it's inevitably distracted, and it's been relocating some of its military resources. Whether that actually undermines the fundamentals of the military balance in the Asia-Pacific as between China and the US, I would doubt at this stage. Whether it fundamentally changes China's risk calculus about whether it should push position on Taiwan or its other claims in the South China Sea, I don't think that has been yet materially affected. But again, a lot of these impacts really depend on the duration of the crisis. And if America is increasingly pulled away, then some countries in the region will feel that they have more latitude to pursue their interests, or that they may take steps because they feel they have to rely on their own activities more than before.
All right. I've been told we're out of time, but I'm going to be a bit naughty here, and I hope you cooperate by making this short. I mean, do you see this whole energy landscape in Asia changing because of this in a permanent sort of way? What kind of a picture can we expect?
I think diversification is going to be key. There's a limit to how much of that can happen. Onshoring of energy capabilities will be key in some countries as well that are already moving towards the redevelopment of nuclear energy programs and so on. All of these things take time, and the vulnerability to continuing systemic shocks is going to remain.